If they didn't, that's fine, because it's on the internet. You can go to PCTV, and on the left column there's actually a heading that says Car Stories. Click on that, watch last month's show. It's real interesting. I did a story on, I did a couple things, but the main story was about a 59 Chevrolet when it was built in 1959. And it just, the facts are really amazing how our country was building these cars back in 1959. So the one thing I didn't cover that I want to cover real quick is gas mileage. Back in the 50s and 60s, that particular car that we were talking about, the 59 Chevy with a 283 automatic, got anywhere from 15 to 20 miles to the gallon, maybe a little bit more. A mechanic would be able to tune it and jet the carburetor, advance the timing, and do things like that. He would get 20 plus miles to the gallon with a big car like that. So it's a little a concern of mine that 50 years later, 53 years later, with all the technology, all the computers, all the wiring, the oxygen sensors, all those gadgets and gizmos that are in modern cars, we really haven't gotten far ahead as far as gas mileage. The cars today are more efficient. They stay in tune, where the old days they constantly had to be tuned up and you had to be a mechanic to get those mileage. The computer has made it that we don't need tune-ups. They tune themselves practically. But in 53 years, the mileage has really not gotten that much better. And I just wanted to throw that in there. I didn't cover that last month. And I did ask last month for car stories from the public. And I got a lot of response. A lot of people liked the show, but I didn't get a lot of car stories. A lot of people are afraid of the television thing, or they don't want to be embarrassed. It's not bad, believe me. It's fun to share these stories. And I'm going to share a story with you that I heard years ago. It's more of a wives' tale kind of story. There was a local gentleman. He was a customer of mine. His name was Harry Bennett, and he had a couple sons that I went to school with. And Harry Bennett told me this story that in 1957, a guy got a brand new Chevrolet that got 30 miles to the gallon, and he couldn't understand why, and he was curious. The General Motors or Chevrolet found out that this car was sold to the general public, and it was an experimental carburetor. And this car was not supposed to go out the door, but it did accidentally. So they tried to buy this car back from him. He wouldn't do it. He was happy getting his 30 miles to the gallon. Finally, General Motors, to get the car back in their possession, gave him a brand new Cadillac loaded with options. And they got the car back. Now that's a car story. We're not so sure it's true, but a local gentleman, Harry, who's no longer with us, told me that story years ago, and that could be true. I mean, you've heard stories like that. You've heard stories where people bought a Corvette for a couple $100 that was advertised in the newspaper. They're more of a folklore type of story, and they're cool. They're interesting. They've been passed down, and maybe it was true. We don't really know 100% because most of those people aren't with us anymore. But the car stories that I'm looking for are local history, racing, car clubs, your first car, your grandfather's car, anything like that has a nice catch to it. I'm lucky enough that I have a few antique and classic cars, and they all have stories. So over the next few months, I'll share some of my stories, but I really don't want to be here talking the whole half hour. I want someone else to share their story and come on as a guest. So I'll give you the website. It's on the front of the desk. It's www.wheels-in-motion.biz. Please send your story in. You can call me at 610-326-4221. You can call PCTV at 327-9682 or 327-9620. And like I said last month, this success of this show is going to be because of all the good stories we get from people. So I just, it's important to me to say that, and I hope that you guys come forward with your pictures and your stories. So, like I said, I have many of them, and I'll share with them, but I want to hear from you guys. Last month, I also tied in with that 59 about buying local. It's real important to support the local businesses. Small businesses right now are the backbone of this country, and they're the backbone of Pottstown. Years ago, I mean, I'm old enough to go way back. I'll tell you the car things. We had a lot of car dealers in Pottstown. We had a lot of Ford, Chrysler, Chevy. They're all gone. We had a lot of industry. They're not here anymore. So the ones that are here, like right now, we have a lot of repair garages. We have a lot of body shops. We need to support those. It'll help. It'll keep us going. It'll keep our taxes more stable. So I just wanted to share that with you. A lot of people think that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the cars, how they evolved. A lot of people think that the cars went from stagecoaches to gasoline engines, and from there on. Actually, cars go way back. The first car that I could find on record was 1769, and it was called a Cugnot. It was in Europe, in France, but it wasn't gasoline powered, it was steam powered. And of course, the locomotives have been around for a long time, so natural transition was to make a steam car similar to the steam locomotive. If you can see this picture here, our cameraman's zooming right in. There's a picture of it. It was a 3-wheeled vehicle. The steam pot was on the steering. So when you turned the corner, that big pot in the front went with you. Top speed was 2 to 3 miles an hour. And believe it or not, this car was totaled. It hit a stone wall, which is hard to believe at that mile an hour. But they did rebuild it, and there's the second version of it is in a museum today. This book, by the way, is from 1951. Remember I told you last month how important old literature is. This is a book from 1951. It's in amazing condition. The guy that wrote the book was roughly, I'm going to guess, say 60 years old at the time. So he was old enough to remember the turn of the century and the first automobile and the 1890s, 1900s. He refers to it in this book like he was a kid, that he remembers the transition from horse and buggy to the automobile. So it's really cool to read this book because he lived it. The facts are real. So he wrote this book, and you can see other steam vehicles here, pictures of them. There were steam coaches. They were all from Europe, England. Steam coaches that carried people back and forth to the railroad station. I'm sorry, here I'm getting a little glare. I'll try to turn it more. There you go. There's a steam coach, and then there's a steam car. It was built in 1863, not 19. It's an Austin, a derivative of the Austin automobile that was built in England. And this book just goes on and on. On the top of this page, on this side, over here is a steam, looks almost, I'm not doing good tonight with the pictures here, I'm sorry. But there's a steam picture of a vehicle that was used, again, in, I believe, France. Richard Steam, yeah. And just neat. It's really cool. A pioneer of the gasoline vehicles was on the bottom of the page, down here. And that one is 1875. Again, in Europe. It's in a museum today. And then there's several other gasoline engine vehicles. G.B. Selden in 1879 had a gasoline engine vehicle, and he also held a patent on the gasoline engine until the early 1900s, when Henry Ford fought him on that and somehow got around the patent that he was supposed to get royalties of every gasoline piston engine, and Henry Ford put a squash to that and stopped it. And then in 1892, we had the Benz Kaleidoscope, which was a derivative, a Mercedes-Benz. That was the Benz part of Mercedes. In 1892, we had the German Benz, which eventually became Mercedes-Benz. And then in 1893, we had what some historians would say the first gasoline production vehicle here in the United States, which was the Duryea. And Duryea was right here in Reading. He started his building, I can't remember, I think it was Massachusetts, but don't quote me on that. But he eventually moved to Reading, and that's where they have the Duryea Hill climb to this day. And we have Duryea Day over at Boyertown on Labor Day. That's after Frank Duryea, who built a gasoline-powered vehicle in 1893. And the discrepancy is a gentleman named Haynes that also built a gasoline vehicle in 1893. So we're not quite sure, who was actually first, but they were darn close. They weren't a production vehicle. I said production. The production vehicles didn't come until 1900s, like Henry Ford. He's credited with the bigger production, the assembly line. These were hand-built vehicles. And I have an interesting story about that. A few weeks ago, we were on vacation in Cape May, New Jersey. And we were there for my wife's birthday and a weekend vacation. I was never in Cape May. The historic homes and the Victorian homes are just beautiful. So we took a tour of downtown Cape May, and we saw the homes, of course, and we saw some landmarks, and I actually learned a car thing. The lady that was giving the guided tour said that Cape May was known in the early 1900s. Their beach was the best beach that people would test cars on. So in 1904, there was 13 cars. And similar to today, the cars raced and drag raced, and depending on how good they did, they got their pole position. The worst position was closest to the ocean. The best position was furthest away from the ocean. So there was 13 cars. The rival between Ford and Chevrolet was going on in 1904 because Ford had mechanical problems and started in the race in the 13th spot, which was the closest one to the water. Chevrolet started up higher. I don't remember which spot, but he was up higher. The race was finished. Ford got hit by a wave. His motor stalled. He lost the race, and Chevrolet wound up finishing third. So the Ford and Chevy rivalry was hot and heavy in Cape May in 1904. Henry Ford at that point was really short on money. He didn't have enough money to pay his hotel bill. The trip had cost him, I can't believe this, but the number I found was $400. He was in debt for this trip. Even back then, that's a lot of money, in 1904. So I guess between traveling expenses, the hotel bills, he probably paid some people to help him. He was $400 in the hole. So a businessman came forward from Cape May and offered to cover his expenses. He was a wealthy businessman that lived in Cape May. Henry Ford said to him, "For you doing that for me, when I get my vehicles into production, I will give you a Ford franchise." So lo and behold, in 1907, the first Ford franchise in the United States was opened in Cape May, New Jersey, in the center of town. Unfortunately, it's no longer there. That got tore down in the, I think, 80s for apartments. And but it was a neat story, again, that I learned on vacation, that, the history of Cape May, that they were racing on the beach, and, Ford and Chevrolet had this thing going like we do now, And if you go on the internet and check it out, you'll see some of the pictures and some of the cars and a little more details about that fact that I learned. So there's always room to learn in this hobby and this profession, and there was something that I wanted to share with you. It's about Cape May, New Jersey. So Henry Ford was always credited with the first production line, and he made the first vehicle with interchangeable parts, meaning that a lot of the other ones were one-off, and you couldn't take pieces from a 1901 or 1902 and switch it to another one. Well, when Henry Ford developed the Model T, that was the idea, that it was a universal parts. In fact, another interesting fact is the engines were shipped in crates. Henry Ford had the crates built to a certain specification. When they uncrated the motors and put them in the car, the wood from the crate was used in the floorboards of the car. They were cut to the same exact size, so on an assembly line they could unpack the motor, lay the boards in, and that word floorboards we still use today, but back then they were actually wooden floorboards, and that's another thing that's neat about Henry Ford. So that's my story for tonight on the beginning of time, or beginning of automobiles in the 19th century, 20th century, which I thought was cool because we all think that they went from horse and buggy to engines, and kind of didn't go that way. There was a lot of things before that, the steam coaches. So next I have for you some show dates. Show dates, Macungie Park this weekend is Aukfest, which is an original show, restored cars. It's real good. They have a toy show, giant toy show, literature, memorabilia. It's a good one to go to if you can make it. At the end of the month, August 24th, 25th, and 26th, is Macungie Wheels of Time. That's more for the modified cars, and it's street rods and things like that, custom cars. Hopefully I'm going to be there in the flea market. I'm going to bring a couple cars and set up a little display. So I'm ironing out the details on that right now, but I hope to be there. Good show for you to go to. It's good for the wife too, because they have things for the women. This weekend they have 3 or 4 huge buildings full of crafts at this Aukfest, which is, I think, 48 years they've been doing that show. But it's a nice show for the family and the ladies. So I wanted to share those couple dates with you. Labor Day weekend, I told you last month, I'll bring it up again. Duryea Day at Boyertown Park. It's sponsored by the Boyertown Museum. It's in honor of Duryea that was built in Reading. Great show for the family. Highly recommend it. Now, remember, Car Stories is live. So if you have a car story you want to call in, call in. I'm here for another 15 minutes yet. 610-327-9682. And again, the email address is wheelsinmotion.biz. The email address is wheelsinmotion@aol.com. So get your stories into me so I can make this show even better. Now, Saturday night is a cruise night on High Street. The PCTV crew and I are going to be there on location. We want to interview some people, talk to some friends that I know, of course, people I don't know, cars that I've been involved with, cars that I haven't been involved with. We just want to walk around through the crowd and see what's out there, get some car stories live, on location, High Street, Saturday night. We tried to do it last month. You'll see that some of the listings in the paper say that we're doing a live show on High Street. I was there for about an hour, and a customer of mine was there with his Mach 1, and we got there about an hour, and the skies opened up, lightning. We made it back to my shop, luckily, before the big rain hit. So unfortunately, last month it didn't work out. So we're going to try again this Saturday night on High Street. Pottstown Classic Car Club puts on a great show. It's a lot of fun. They have raffles. They have things to do. And again, downtown Pottstown. Take your wife out to eat. Go to one of the many good businesses. It's not just about the car show. Come down, walk and look at the cars, and go out to eat. So I hope to see a lot of new faces there. Come up to me. I'll be there. Gus will be there with the camera. We're going to get some of your cars on TV. Next month when I do the show, you can see your car on TV and see your interview. So it's something that PCTV is doing that's terrific. Now, at the car show, I don't know if people are familiar with a project. It's called the Heron Project. It was sponsored and developed by Pottstown Classic Car Club. There's a veteran, his name is Brad Heron, and he was in the Gulf War, the Iraq, Afghanistan, and he was at Katrina. And through a network of different local businesses, they restored a 1967 Ford Galaxy for Brad. It was a really neat project that the Pottstown Car Club put together, and a lot of other businesses donated their time and parts and money, and this thing finally came together. The car's done. They're going to present it to Brad on High Street Saturday night. So he will be there. Gus will be there with PCTV. We're gonna film the handing over to the keys to Brad, his 1967 Ford Galaxy. Now, I don't know Brad. I'm going to ask some questions to him. Is like, why did he pick this car? I bet you he has a story. I bet you there's a reason why he picked this car. You know, he grew up with Fords. His dad liked Fords. Well, we're going to find that out Saturday night. So if you're there at the Pottstown show, you'll see it. If not, next month on PCTV, we're going to share the footage from High Street right here, live. So that's really cool. It's really a neat project, and we'll get a list out there of the people that helped put this together. But like I said, Pottstown Classic spearheaded it. They're a great club. A lot of times, the money that you donate to these car shows, you don't realize what they do with it. They give it to charities. They help do projects like this. It's a great thing in our community to support. So I hope everybody can make it, and I hope the rain holds out this month. So like I said, we'll be there Saturday night. The last car show, which is September 1st, it's the same day as Duryea Day. So I usually go to Duryea Day during the day and then go to High Street that night. The last car show is the Hot Wheel race for the kids, and that's one that I do sponsor. Brad Ray spearheaded this and the Pottstown Classics, and I'm a Hot Wheel collector. I've been doing that for years. So 3 years ago we started this. This is the third annual, and it's a great thing to get the youth involved in our hobby and in the profession of automobiles. And it's a blast. So if you have any young kids or any grandkids or neighbors' kids, tell them to get their Hot Wheels out, find out which one's the fastest, and bring that out to High in Hanover. It's right there at High in Hanover. They set up a track and we race, and the kids get trophies, first, second, third trophies, and they get some goodie bags and stuff like that. So September 1st, High Street, Hot Wheels race, and a car show also. That's the last one for the season. This weekend, like I said, is the one that we're going to be there live filming, trying to talk to local people and trying to get some more input for the show. So I hope everyone can make it. And Pottstown is a great town for cars, and like I started to say earlier in the show about some of the dealerships, I'll go down a few I can remember. Up on High Street, which is now Matrix Service Center, that used to be Howard Cates Ford. Before that, it was Cates and Becker. Aside of that, which was the old McCabe's up the street a little bit, was Tony and Jean's AMC dealership. Down further on High Street, where J&S Auto Supply is now, that's where Tri-County Toyota, which then was called Berman Graves. That's where they started selling Toyotas and used cars back, I guess, in the late 60s. I remember that as a kid. And of course, then they moved up, the Walmart or Kmart, and now they've moved out even further out of town. Coming down through High Street, there was dealerships that I don't remember, but there was dealerships on the corner of High and York. Of course, there was Kaiser Chevrolet, which was Dame Chevrolet. If you keep going down High Street, there was Bolton Oldsmobile, which is where the dollar store is, or was, the new Wawa and the bank. And again, you know, there was a lot of business in Pottstown, not just car businesses, factories. They're not here anymore, so support the ones that are here. I brought this old magazine with me tonight. It's called Pottstown on Parade. I found this at Zern's years ago, and I forget what I paid for it. $7, $10, and the gentleman had a whole stack of them. And it was Friday night, and I bought this one just because I love this stuff, you know. I went back Saturday to buy the rest, and they were all gone. So I know a lot of local historians. George Wasnock is a good guy that's into Pottstown history. I'm sure he's seen these and has these, but this is the one I have. And I just want to show you, when I'm talking about car dealerships, here's Quigley Brothers, which is a derivative of Quigley, Dodge, and Chevy on Route 100, if you can see that. Now that's the inside of the car dealership. This is 1942. Now, where was this place at? This was where the Mercury is now. That was a car dealership on the corner of, what would that be? King and Hanover. So, again, another cool, you know, local history thing that the cars really in this town have been a lot. I'll show you some other pictures in here. There's High Street, some pictures of High Street. I marked the wrong page, so give me 1 minute here. This one here. This is Quigley's Atlantic Service Station at 1435 High, which is down, it's practically in the middle of town. I can't even tell you what's there now. It's a service station right up here. And then under it is Hartman's Atlantic Station. That was at High and York Street. My dad actually pumped gas there when he was a kid. That would be a side of what now is the Elks Club on the High and York. Hartman's Atlantic Station. You know, again, you know, a lot of this stuff is gone, and the pictures they have, I'm sure if a lot of people don't know, the very best hot dog shop in Pottstown, if you go in there, they have a lot of really cool pictures hanging on the wall of High Street through the years. This is a cool one, has nothing to do with cars, but I want to show it. The 9th Annual Police Ball. I mean, look at the uniforms and stuff. It's just cool. And again, I stress how good these old books are for cars and local history. It was a different time. It was a different era. It was 1942. I mean, World War II. So, anyhow, that's pretty much it for tonight's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't see last month's show, please go on the internet and watch it. Tell your friends about it. Get them involved with the car stories. Like I said, cruising High Street, racing. I want to hear them. Everybody wants to hear these stories. I got a lot of positive feedback from all friends, customers, strangers about last month's show. And I want to keep that. I want to keep it fresh. I want to keep it different. And without you and your stories, it's hard to do. So with someone coming in here as a guest next month or the following month, sharing their stories, it would be really neat. So again, contact me by wheelsinmotion@aol.com. Contact me by phone. Contact PCTV. If you go on PCTV, on the internet, you can view not just my show, all the programs on PCTV. So if you're in Berks County and don't get the channel, or if you missed it tonight live at 8 o'clock on Wednesday night, don't worry about it. You can catch up on it on the internet. So if you go back to watch last month's show, share it with your friends. We're going to make this really cool. Gus is excited about it. I'm excited about it. And I hope to see you Saturday night live on High Street with your hot rod, without your hot rod. Just come on out and have a good time in downtown Pottstown. So that's it for tonight's show. We're going to say goodbye, and we'll see you soon.